You're good.
Okay, I guess I'll read it since I already
All right,
spoke.
go ahead, Sourin.
So we provide a supportive and positive learning experience in which members are empowered to develop communication and leadership skills, resulting in greater self-confidence and personal growth.
Thank you, Sourin. And with that, I will go ahead and introduce to the virtual stage our president, Slate Nations.
Thank you, Tricia. This is our second summer meeting online, and I think it's going to be a pretty good one. We have two speakers today, myself and Scott, and we also have some table topics lined up. I think it should run a little under time, not right on time, and looking forward to it. Tricia, I'll pass it back to you as Toastmaster to explain the rest of the meeting.
Yes, so even though we do have our summer virtual meeting, it is still the same format as if we were to have in-person meetings, such that we have 3 sections: prepared speeches, table topics, and evaluations, which you can also see the order of in our agenda today. Before that, I will go ahead and introduce 3 roles that are very critical to today's meetings and kind of just helping us improve our public speaking altogether. So first, I will introduce all counter. Sourin, if you could explain your role.
So as the all counter, I'm going to be looking for any pauses that you make or any filler words that you use in order to convey a pause and to just see how coherent your language is throughout your speech. Thank you.
Thank you, Sourin. For Grammarian, I will, as a Grammarian, I'll be keeping track of use of English language, as well as at any time someone were to use the word of the day, which, as you can see on the agenda, is prudent, an adjective meaning, let's see, I can't quite see it. There we go. An adjective meaning being careful of or wise in handling practical matters, exercising good judgment or common sense. So anytime if someone were to use that word of the day in today's meeting, we can go ahead and snap, or also if you look in the bottom of your Zoom screen, you can go to reactions and give a small round of applause or a thumbs up just to acknowledge that person using that word. As well as timer, I will go ahead and also be keeping track of time.
Sorry to interrupt. I can do timer.
Timer? Okay, thank you so much, Tori. Appreciate it.
I got you.
Tori, if you'd like to explain your role as timer.
Yeah, so I'm pretty much just going to be making sure that everyone's in the time frame of 1 to 2 minutes during table topics, and then also in time of 5 to 7 minutes for speeches. And then I'll give a, little evaluation at the end in case anyone was out of time.
That's correct. So the time, just to clarify, will be posted in the chat, so you can kind of see when those notifications come, if you can at least have a gauge for yourself where we are, since we don't have the colored cards for our virtual meetings. But with that, we can go ahead and get started to our first section of the meeting. For our first speaker, he will be giving a speech titled "My Snowboard Experience on Level 1 Pathways." Please welcome to the stage, Slate Nations.
Thank you, Tricia. So this is my snowboard experience, how I nearly died. I want to take you back to 2008. It's 12 years ago now. I was 8 years old. Throughout this story I'm sharing with you today, I want you to remember these memories are through the eyes of an 8-year-old Slate. So some of them may come off as exaggerated. That's how little kid Slate probably saw them. But sometimes I think they're just as real as I remember them. So first, there are 2 trips that I'm going to be sharing with you today. They were very close together in time. The first one was a family trip to Big Bear Mountain. Big Bear Mountain was a ski resort in Southern California. We drove up with my family, me, my 2 brothers, my sister, mom, and dad. I remember vividly driving up the mountain. It was freezing cold outside. The windows were icy. I don't know if anyone's ever experienced it before. I don't think I've experienced it since. But they were so icy, it seemed like they were cracking, making this crickling noise. I thought they were about to shatter. I just was balled up in there, waiting to get up to the top of the mountain. We finally reached it. The windows didn't shatter, thankfully. And we went to our ski lodge that we rented. It was a little cabin-like lodge that we were staying at for the rest of our week. And for the first day, none of us skied or snowboarded. We just stayed at the lodge and chilled out. The lodge was pretty awesome. It had all the necessities. It had a microwave, an oven, fridge, and it had some cooler stuff like a TV, fireplace to warm up after a long day in the cold. But then best of all, it had a hot tub outside. And this hot tub, at first seemed like the strangest thing because it was outside, but it was on snow-laden ground. So we'd be chilling in the hot tub, but there's snow everywhere and it's freezing outside, but we're warm. And so that's just a really vivid memory I have, sitting there with all my brothers. It's probably the last time we were all together not fighting. And another experience at the ski lodge that we were staying at together was outside near the hot tub. We could see all these icicles on the rooftop because it's freezing, so it rains and drips. It would form these awesome icicles, pretty much like giant swords. So we would break them off and play with them. Probably not very safe, but it was something we did regardless. It's just overall a great first day. And so I went to bed that night, and I woke up the next day. And that's when I started to learn how to snowboard. I remember going up to the place where you pick up your snowboard or skis. I was the only one that snowboarded. Everyone else in my family skied. And that's where I spent a few minutes picking out my board. You got to make sure it fits right. Never done this, so I didn't really know what that meant anyway. And thankfully, we did sign up for lessons. So my first day, I went out with an instructor and with some other kids in my age group. I had some lessons. Thankfully, it was a very, very, not steep slope that we practiced on. We just learned the basics. Some of the basics of snowboarding include how to stop. That involves turning your board sideways so that it catches all the snow. You just stop by friction. Includes how to just balance. Includes how to walk. If you don't know, when you're not actively snowboarding or when you have to get on and off the ski lift, you should hold it on one foot like a big shoe, and that can get kind of awkward, and that's important later in my story. And overall, it was pretty great, except for one thing during that instruction lesson. My gloves were horrible. They were the type of ski gloves that you could grab things, and they were just a horrible quality. So the first time I fell into the snow during that lesson, completely soaked. Again, it's freezing outside, but that first half of the day was pretty much ruined. Can't remember if it was my dad's fault, my own fault, but never picked those gloves again. Afterwards, I definitely got some regular mittens. And one other thing that was very important in the instruction lesson, I still remember today, was always fall on your butt. You never want to fall forwards. That's how you get hurt and injured. Fall on your butt's soft, you're safe. Fall forward, all things go wrong. So you always fall backwards, and I did that a lot. And so throughout that day and the next couple days, really just had a great trip. Went through all the bunny slopes, and the bunny slopes are the easy ones. They're pretty short, not hard difficulty. And I just had a good time snowboarding. I think I picked it up pretty fast, and I had a great time. I remember going up the ski lifts. Takes a couple minutes. You hear that clanking all the way up, and then you get off. And I gotta remember, it doesn't stop for you. So I remember I gotta hop off, make sure I got my snowboard, and I sort of shuttle over to the top, a good 20 feet, and then I can start snowboarding finally. But overall, that first family trip was really awesome. Then comes the second trip. So about 2 weeks later, because I had a great time, I went snowboarding again, this time just with my dad. It was a weekend trip. And again, we rented another ski lodge for the two of us, a little smaller because it was just us. And we just went snowboarding. He was skiing again, but we had a good time. We're going up all the bunny slopes, everything again, having a great time. We'd stop by the concession stand real close by, get some food, whole type of deal. And then we came to the last day of our weekend trip. It was the same thing as the day before. We were snowboarding, skiing, having a good time. But then, we're trying to hit all the skis, all the ski lifts, all the slopes. We hit one. Unbeknownst at the time, we accidentally took the longest and hardest slope on the mountain. Meanwhile, we've been doing all the easy ones. We don't notice until it takes a noticeably longer time. That click's going up, and we look back. We have a map we pull out of our pocket. We're like, what have we done? We notice, and then we notice there's no one around. The mountain's clear. So then make matters worse, a whiteout occurs. Snow is pouring down. This is stinging white snow. It's hitting me in the face as it's going up a ski lift. I'm having a horrible time. I didn't actually have a mask on, so I was just holding my arm against my face. And then finally, we made it to the top. It was awful up there. It was freezing. My face was stinging from all that snow hitting my face. Thankfully, because this was the very top of the mountain, at the highest, hardest slope, there's a staff lodge. So we actually stepped inside, and we found out they were the nicest staff ever. They actually let me come in. They took my mittens off for me, threw them in the dryer, warmed them up for me. They gave me this rubber water bottle to warm my hands up. It was really great. And they actually gave me hot cocoa as well. And then so I stayed there for a good 10, 15 minutes, warm up, let that whiteout clear, snow stop falling down. And then we went back out and we started our slope. I remember my dad having to stop for me a lot because I was still a novice. I would go, take my time. It was the longest slope. Who knows how long it really took, but it felt like hours. It was definitely dark as we made our way down. Eventually, we made it towards the bottom after all that time of that empty slope. And then suddenly, somehow there were people at the bottom, even though we didn't see a single person. So it was a really weird experience. And this is the highlight. We come down, and for some weird reason, I was very prudent. For some reason, there were 3 lanes at this bottom to exit the slope. 1, 2, 3. Some reason, 8-year-old Slate took the far left one. And on the far left, there was a cliff going down. And so all that's separating these lanes are wooden stakes and a single piece of ribbon, pink ribbon. And then I fell down on top of it, on the ground, not fall off the cliff, but here I am. And my snowboard, remember, it's attached to my foot. I'm wearing it like a boot at this point because I've already taken it off. I feel like I'm struggling to fall down. I remember I had to pull myself up was that wooden stake. So I just pulled myself up. It felt like an eternity, 10 minutes. It was probably only 1 minute max. And then I think to this day, it was still a 100-foot drop. My dad still thinks it was like a 5-foot drop. It's wrong. And the worst part was my dad had walked past right when I got back up after clawing myself up. He'd come back. He didn't see a single bit of it. I was like, you gotta be kidding. He came back acting like nothing happened. And so I always bring it up to him every day. And he always, all the time, and he always denies it. And that's my experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Slate. I've never been snowboarding before, but you painted a very great picture of what it means to move around in the snow. Being here in Georgia for most of my life, just snow we get it once in a while, and then that's pretty much my recent experiences with snow. Thank you for sharing, Slate. And now we will move on to our second speaker. He will be giving his speech titled New Office, New Normal on this project is completed in the Presentation Mastery Pathway Level 3. Please welcome to the stage, Scott.
Oh, excuse me, guys. Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Tricia. All right. Well, it's good to see. Good to see all of you guys again. All right. So here we are. Okay. All right. New office, new normal. On May 21st, 2020, in a live stream video, Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg announced to his staff that 50% of the company's 50,000 workforce may have to work from home permanently by 2030. So, similarly, at the same time, Shopify announced that it's going to be moving to an all-distance workforce by 2021 next year. These announcements come at a time when businesses are experimenting ways of how to reopen the economy because of the coronavirus pandemic. One immediate and long-term change that I think we will see from this pandemic is how the businesses end up setting up their offices. I believe each person should know what the future office is going to be like once the pandemic is over, and how to prepare for it. Out of all concerns, why are businesses most concerned about what their offices are going to look like? Well, a big driver for looking into office space is mostly cost driven, especially driven by labor costs and real estate costs. As part of his meeting with Facebook staff, Mark Zuckerberg hinted that his employees that do end up working from home would be paid based on their neighborhood's locations, and so some workers may experience a pay cut based on the neighborhood they live in, if they live in inexpensive areas. Yeah. And also another thing to keep in mind was a PwC survey that was taken of most CEOs, who said that at least a quarter of them said that. Excuse me, guys. In a recent PwC survey, most CEOs, a quarter of them, were thinking of cutting back on their real estate expenses. Both of these measures are really a response to make sure that companies have cash flow coming in, especially when new business and therefore revenues are drying up because of the lockdowns from the pandemic. At the moment, what are some ideas that businesses are trying right now? Well, at the present, the most important thing on managers' minds is getting their workers ready to come back to work. And one idea that's being used is you have certain amount of workers in certain groups returning to work and working certain shifts. You also see some office space being set aside for what's called hot desking, where you have employees sharing one common area to work instead of having their own cubicles individually. These ideas that are being proposed right now, I would argue the main purpose is to reduce as much office space as possible to prepare for a smaller workforce that comes back when the pandemic's over. Most importantly, to reduce the number of workers to maintain the social distancing guidelines. In addition to the short-term changes, businesses are also thinking about long-term changes to their offices. One significant change will involve businesses offering their employees the option of either working in the office or working from home permanently. In fact, you could also see the possibility of work-ready homes. Specifically, homes that have the equipment and the IT infrastructure to support work from home activities. Even construction firms are thinking for new homes being built or even old homes being remodeled, being built in a way that keeps in mind work from home requirements. Another thing to consider about in the long term is how much people are going to be using video technology. It means Zoom, for instance, what we're using. One reason you could argue that Zoom is taken off, in contrast to say Microsoft Skype, is that it's much more user friendly, and it's a lot more easier and very versatile to use than as opposed to Skype or even Cisco's Next. I forget the name of the software already, but much more easier to use